They are important because they emphasize the usefulness of personal experience next to that of facts or professional perspectives. Anecdotes represent the variation of experience and inspire compassion. Storytelling is an art form that everyone, even if unknowingly, participates in. An anecdote is a very short story that is significant to the topic at hand, usually adding personal knowledge or experience to the topic. Basically, anecdotes are stories. And like many stories, anecdotes are most often told through speech. They're spoken rather than written down. And the term anecdote originally comes from the Greek phrase anecdota, meaning things unpublished. Humorous, an anecdote that adds humor to the topic at hand. For example, two friends are arguing about driving directions. The driver tells the passenger to turn off the GPS, insisting that he knows the way. The passenger then replies, "Oh, like that time we turned it off and we ended up in the middle of a cow farm?" Reminiscent, a story that remembers something general about the past or a specific event, expressed in ways such as, "That reminds me of when I used to," or "I remember when," and so on. For example, a child asks her grandmother for $2 to buy candy at the store, and the grandmother says, "You know, back in my day, all you needed was a penny to go to the candy shop. My grandmother would give me a nickel and I'd be a happy clam." Philosophical, an anecdote expressed in order to make others think more deeply about the topic at hand. For example, a group of college students are discussing the morality of lying. Most are arguing that it is never okay to lie. One student offers an anecdote to the others. What about families who lied to German soldiers in World War II? You know, about hiding Jews in their home? Do lives saved justify the lies that they told? The students then contemplate the validity of their prior arguments. Inspirational, an anecdote that is told in order to inspire hope or other positive emotions. They're often about not giving up, about achieving goals or dreams, making the impossible possible, and so on. For example, a doctor talking to a group of war amputees tells them about a soldier who came in with no hands and no hope, but left the hospital holding his newborn baby in his new prosthetic hands. Cautionary, stories that warn others about the dangers or negative consequences surrounding the topic at hand. For example, a speaker is giving a talk to teenagers about the risk of using drugs. During his presentation, he reminds them of a well-known straight-A student who died of a heroin overdose a few years before, warning them that it can happen to anyone. Because of their diversity in style, tone, and utility, anecdotes can be used by almost any person in any situation and in any genre. Like any story shared with others, anecdotes serve countless purposes and make situations more interesting for both the characters as well as the audience. And anecdotes are timely devices that are used across literature, film, television, and theater, and it has been benefiting storytellers for centuries. We are a species addicted to story. Even when the body goes to sleep, the mind stays up all night, telling itself stories. Jonathan Gottschall, author of the Storytelling Animal, How Stories Make Us Human, There's a scientific explanation for our love of stories. When we hear a story that resonates with us, our levels of a hormone called oxytocin increase. Oxytocin is a feel-good hormone. It boosts our feelings of things like trust, passion, and empathy, and it encourages us to work with others and positively influences social behavior. Because of this, stories have a unique ability to call us to action. Brands know this, and they tap into its power to create a base of an engaged fans. We are biologically and neurologically wired to connect with stories. Anecdotal evidence is often unscientific or pseudoscientific because various forms of cognitive bias may affect the collection or the presentation of evidence. Anecdotal evidence is a story told by individuals. It comes in many forms that can range from product testimonials to word of mouth. It is often testimony or an account about the truth or an effectiveness of a claim. Typically, anecdotal evidence focuses on individual results and is driven by emotion, and it is presented by individuals who are not subject area experts. The following are the examples of anecdotal evidence. Wow, I took this supplement and lost a lot of weight. This pill must work. Or, I know someone who smoked for decades and it never produced any significant illness. Those claims about smoking are exaggerated. Or, this anti-aging cream took years off. It must be the best. Anecdotes often refer to the expectation rather than the rule. Anecdotes as evidence are useless, precisely because they may point to idiosyncratic responses. And generally, a statistical correlation between things does not itself prove that one causes the other, a causal link. Personal anecdotes are often primary ammunition of those who deny science or are presented with evidence that requires a change in behavior. If you ask for more information and reasoning, you will most certainly get flooded with anecdotes. These accounts are often emotional stories. Anecdotes are used to give a personal perspective, to illustrate a point, to make people think about something, or to make them laugh. Be sure that the anecdote you have in mind is relevant to the context. Ask yourself, why do I want to use this anecdote? What point does it illustrate? Next, consider these questions. Who was involved in the story? What happened? When did it happen? Is it relevant? Where did it happen? Is it relevant? Because of anecdote being a mini story, we structure it in the same way that we would structure a larger piece. We infuse the story, we say what happened, we even draw a conclusion or ask questions so that the audience can read their own conclusion. The main point you try to get across is the punchline, whether it's funny or serious, so save it for last. The first thing to mention is the person or group directly involved in the story. Always remember, you are illustrating a point, and anything that doesn't fall into part with that part will be a distraction. An anecdote is a story that is told in order to convey information or to provide an example, sometimes humorous. Anecdotes not only provide information, but also have a purpose. For instance, imagine a conversation starts regarding car troubles. Your coworker tells a ridiculous story about a flat tire and how always having a spare tire is important. The coworker just told an anecdote. In legal settings, anecdotal evidence refers to personal testimony and other subjective evidence that isn't backed up scientifically. An example would be a witness who casually talks about the strange behavior of the defendant. Although this might be relevant to the case, it is not officially documented in any manner, such as with photographs, videos, scientific observation, and so on. Therefore, it is just anecdotal. Stories shape memories so dramatically that once you tell a story, it's hard to get out of that story framework. It gets more dramatical over time, and this tendency can be either for a foundation for good relationships or rend couples asunder. People who tell stories about others that emphasize their negative qualities will tend to remember things that fit into that thesis and forget the positive traits they have previously experienced. Anecdotes are non-threatening. Anecdotes are engaging. Anecdotes foster independence. The individual needs to make sense out of the message and then come to a self-initiated conclusion or a self-initiated action. Anecdotes can be used to bypass natural resistance to change. They can be used to control relationships. Anecdotes model flexibility. Anecdotes can create confusion and promote hypnotic responsiveness. And anecdotes tag the memory. They make the presented idea more memorable. We don't just tell stories. Stories tell us. They shape our thoughts and memories and even change how we live our lives. Storytelling isn't just how we construct our identities. Stories and anecdotes are our identities.